Hello guys, I got this great idea from Summer Star to do a reading story time with Tutu. This is my Tutu, Cynthia Deleon, and she's going to be reading The Tales of the Night Rainbow today.
I'll be reading from a book called Tales from the Night Rainbow. This book is from Pali, Lee, and Koko, Willis. Let me show you the book. Tales from the Night Rainbow, Mo'olelo o na po makole, the story of a woman, a people, and an island, and all history as told by Kaili, Kame, ekua of Kamalo, Moloka'i, 1816 to 1931, recorded by Pali J. Lee and Koko Willis, Paia Capella Willis Ohana. This book is written in first person. The stories are being shared with us by our big grandma, Kaili Ohe, Kame ekua of Kamalo, Moloka'i, 1816 to 1931. This is a picture of her. Beautiful woman. A sketch, by the way. There are many kinds of rainbow. The night, too, has rainbows. One, the encircling ring around the moon, is only a weather sign. The other night rainbow, na po mokole, is seen only by a few. It is the spirit rainbow, the rainbow that holds our ancestors. When it is seen, it is a great blessing from all our family who have gone out of flesh. Many healings take place at this time, for our spirit family knows our needs and tries to help us. They give us knowledge and rekindle the light when it is weak. It is a time of unity, a time for family, a reawakening or renewal of those in body. There is no greater blessing on earth than the blessing of the night rainbow. Ho'ola'a, dedication. Mama ua noa lele vale. The couple is finished. The words fly free. To Kaili ohe kame ekua, kumu ku'u hoa kupuna. To Kamao li'au onua o Moloka'i, kona akua, kona ao makua, uhi, aina pua, o na ohana paia Capella Willis, me ke aloha nui. I'll be reading the foreword, Olelo Ha'i Mua. This book began as a compilation of stories and remembrances for children of the Paia Capella Willis Ohana. The family elders wanted the children to know who they were and the history of their family. In 1983, the elders of the family decided to share these stories with all the families of Moloka'i and Hawaii, so they too could know something in their past. Historians and anthropologists may differ with some of the material, but this is how the stories were told, and this is how they are presented. Kaua ko kaula kuhai moana kai mana Willis, ruling elder Paia Capella Willis Ohana. Ho'ohui, the introduction. Our family elders have agreed that the truths held in family should be shared with all the children of our Ohana family and the children of other family lines who have lost their family stories. History changes with the years. Most of it, it seems, is the view of the person telling the story. It is how he thinks it might have been. We can only speculate on how eras began. Any story told and retold will change unless every small detail is learned. There is also the idea that has been so prevalent among our people that you tell the haole, foreigner, anything and he'll believe it. Most Hawaiians have been prone to do this. It was a way of paying back for their taking our gods, our laws, and our land. The outlandish stories have come back to roost. However, for now, many of Hawaii's own children believe our people roasted and ate Captain Cook and other similar made-up stories. The joke is gone. Hawaiian history has become mostly fiction. How do we then correct these errors? How do we give our children pride in their heritage when there is no one to tell them? Our family was blessed. We had big grandma, Kaili, although she taught us to not tell stories out of family, to listen to the boasters and the braggers, and keep our truths to ourselves. She saw it as very important for our own children to know the truth about who and what they were. Her own children were not interested, and stories were learned and kept by just few grandchildren. Today, these few are quickly leaving us. Since we began this book, most of the elders who shared their knowledge have joined their ancestors. Kaili was 17 when the missionaries came to Moloka'i. She was quiet, taken with their Bible, for it held all the stories of all the genealogies, and it could be passed on and on without worry on anyone's part that it would change. Her dream was a book like that of the Hawaiian people. There have been many Hawaiian histories written, most of them foreigners. The few Hawaiians who wrote histories did so after being converted to Christianity, and they were working for Christians when they wrote their pieces. Some things were told correctly, some were not, in Grandma's eyes. This is not just another history. It is the history of the Kaiakea family of Moloka'i and of that island. Some of the younger generations of our family do not know who Kaiakea was, or even who Grandma Kaili was. Kaili was the granddaughter of Kaiakea, who was the most famous in all Hawaii for his knowledge in signs of the sea and the sky. He was called an omen reader. He knew the family chants from the ancient times down to himself. He knew the history chants. He is considered great today, and few Hawaiians have achieved that status. Kaiakea had 10 children, and one of them a girl. Ka'akau Maka Veli Veli was his favorite. She followed him everywhere as a child, and he taught her all he knew. He took her into his halal school and taught her as he taught the men. She was quick to learn, and he was never sorry he had honored her in that way. When she was grown and knew many things, she moved to Kapuale and built her own school. We don't know what year that was, but it was during the time that Kahikili ruled Maui. It was there, at Kapuale, that Maka found the school of Ho'opio sorcery. When Grandma Kaili was born in 1816, she was hanai'd to, or raised by, her Aunt Maka Veli Veli to be taught, and she was taught well. When still a child, she mastered the chants which told the history of the family, the fun story chants, and the main genealogy chants. She learned from the time she was a babe in arms until her teacher died in 1840. Kaili did not marry as a young girl. She stayed by her teacher and learned. The Christian missionaries came to Moloka'i in 1832. They built a coral church at Kalua'aha, and Kaili helped them build it. When Father Damien came to Kamalo, she helped build a church for him also. She saw much that was good in what the foreigners brought, and she was wise enough to know what was good in her own background. When George Fornander wrote his histories on Hawaii, he sent a Hawaiian man to her to learn from her. Kaili had learned already to be cautious, and she shared little. Later, George Fornander came to her himself, asking for information. Kaili lived through the entire monarchy. She was born during the reign of Kamehameha I and died well after Hawaii had become a territory to the United States. This history is as she and the members of her family told it. This is recorded by Pali Kealohilani Lee, Paia Kapela Willis, Ohana. The first story I'm going to be reading is Kapoi Kahiko, or the Ancient People. Ikalamai. Kapoi Kahiko, the Ancient People. History, as anything else, is seen and understood by where a person stands on the mountain. All people climb the same mountain. The mountain, however, has many pathways, and every pathway is a different view. A person knows and understands only what he sees from his own pathway, and as he moves, his view will change. Only when he reaches the top of the mountain, he will see and understand all the views of mankind. But who among us has reached the top of the mountain? Tomorrow, we too will see a different view. We have not finished growing. Most Hawaiian history has been written from the pathways taken by foreigners who wrote Hawaiian history as they saw and believed things to be. It was from a pathway taken by my family on Moloka'i that I tell these stories. They are the stories as told by Kaiakea to my teacher and beloved mother, Ka'akau Makaveli, whom I will refer to only as Makaveli, and she in turn taught to those of us who were part of her halau school in Kapuole. The ancient ones were the people who were Maoli, native to Hawaii. 700 or 800 years ago, the Tahitians came to our islands, and since then the stories of our origins and life have been dominated by their outlook. In many ways, the Tahitians were a people similar to us, but in many others, we are as light is to the dark. The early ones lived with an attitude about life that gave them what we would call great power over their surroundings, but it is really the power of love and kinship working through the feelings of the objects we live among. Our ancestors lived in many small family communities and were guided by the elders of the family, the families we called Ohana, and all of the families on the islands who were of our line were Ohana Laha. Today we would call that a clan. There were many clans in those days and many people. Different communities belonging to a clan wore kapa clothing of the same color, but they had different markings on their kapa to show which part of the clan they belonged to, and used different hairstyles and tattoos. When you met a stranger and he wore the family color, you could tell his branch of the family by these differences. Each family had what we called an amalkua, a spirit felt as a living part of the family, a presence, like our ancestors, aware of us and ready at all times to show us the turns in our pathways. This spirit could be a part of anything or everything. Our family was called a mo'o family. A mo'i is a gecko or a lizard. We were kind to all creatures, for they were our brothers. We felt more for the gecko or a lizard because it was our belief that they protected us and watched over us. Our family wore our hair shoulder length, and the men wore short beards. Some other branches of the family cut their hair short and plucked their beards. All the descendants of Kanehoalani, the Kaya family, wore finger tattoos to show that we followed a holy life. Other branches of the family had other tattoos, and some wore no tattoos at all. There are many clans in ancient days, each with its own color and its own amalkua. There was the Shark family with its colors of gray. There was the Shao clan who wore a dark red, and the Owl family who wore kapa of browns. The Thunder clan of Maui wore only the darkest black. On Oahu, there were families who wore orange, leeward families, and in Ko'olauloa, there were families with beautiful pink kapa. I do not know what their amalkua might have been or what family line they were. Each family took care of itself and made all they needed. On Moloka'i, the gods were Ku and Hina. The temples, or heiau, had an upright stone for Ku, the male god, and a prostrate of flat stones for Hina, the female god. The temples of our family had a light which burned at all times, and someone was always there to tend to it. It was the belief of our family line that we had been here from the beginning. People had gone out from our land to the east and to the west and populated other lands. We had chants that told of such migration from our islands. We taught by stories and parables. One of the earliest and most important to us was, each child born has at birth a bowl of perfect light. If he tends his light, it will grow in strength, and he can do all things. Swim with the shark, fly with the birds, know and understand all things. If, however, he becomes envious or jealous, he drops a stone into his bowl of light, and some of the light goes out. Light and the stone cannot hold the same space. If he continues to put stones in the bowl of light, the light will go out and he will become a stone. A stone does not grow, nor does it move. If at any time he tires of being a stone, all he needs to do is turn the bowl upside down, and the stones will fall away, and the light will grow once more. A parable. The stories or parables were all teachings and reminders. The Maoli had stories of vines, trees, seeds, fish, earth, sea and sky, the things that were common to the people and that were understood. When a child began to speak, the family began to teach him about the world of which he was a part. The ancient ones believed that at all time is now, that we are each creators of our life's condition. We create ourselves and everything that becomes a part of our lives. Any situation we might find ourselves in is brought about by us in learning the many pathways of life. Any time we wish to change our circumstances, all we have to do is let go of our present condition and it will be gone. On the other hand, if we find it useful to continue, we can hang on to the problem and not release it. The early ones believed there is one body of life of which we are all a part. We had our land and sea and sky, and they, too, are a part of us. Everything that grew on our land and swam in our ocean, we called brother and sister. We are a part of all things, and all things are part of us, and the old ones knew this and lived accordingly. They did not destroy. They spoke to a plant that was to be picked and explained why it was being done. A rock, before being used as part of a new house platform or hayal, would be asked if it approved of being used in such a manner. If signs were against such use, the people needing the rock moved to another location and asked a different rock. It was far better to do something correctly than in a hurry or without regard for the effects of our actions. We were taught that when the mana, the personal power, is strong and people accept themselves as the powerful beings that they are, all things are possible. Moving rocks, for instance, need not be as big a burden if the rocks wished to be a part of this project. Man would carry the stone, but need not carry the weight of the stone. Such learning applied to all parts of life. In fishing and collecting food, when the amount that was needed was clearly understood, that amount became available. There was no want. There was no waste. The early ones taught that there is no dividing line between two people. You cannot hit your brother without hitting yourself, your father and your mother. It is best, then, to hit no one. The early ones had no kings, no great warlords, no armies, no system of laws. Around 1250 A.D., a priest named Pa'au came on a visit from Tahiti. He knew Tahitians, for there were many Tahitians who had come here to live. Any family who wished to come and live on these shores was welcome, and they were helped to establish themselves. They usually adapted to our way of life quickly, and there was harmony among the families. Pa'au was noticed for many reasons. He came wearing white. The color was not used by us, for it represented the absence of life. The man who came with him wore the Tahitian red malo, or clothing, which we were familiar with. Pa'au visited every island asking questions, always asking questions. People wanted to be helpful, and so told him of harbors and tides, fertile valleys, and all the things he asked about. No one thought much of it. That was his way. And then suddenly, like an unsettled wind, he was gone. When people asked each other about him, they called him the man who wore death. Several years later, Pa'au did return. I'll stop here and do a next reading next time. Aloha and mahalo.